So, as I uploaded yesterday, basically the more written version of what I've talked about in the past, even though it wasn't completely on screen. I mean, you have to go to the description to read the whole thing. And I kind of cleaned up the description as best I can because, with, sites like the YT and others, you don't want to take a chance of, getting in trouble. However, there was something that, got on my mind a little bit. And, one of the stories I talked about in there as an example as to, why, Tales is always chosen, Miles Prower, that is, always chosen, aged up or not, to basically be with certain, female Sonic characters. One of the stories I mentioned in there, and I also posted this at inkbunny.net and deviantart.com and furfiniate.com, where you could basically read the written version and all that, as well as here, as well as in the description of the initial video I posted yesterday. But one of the stories I talked about was the one that the Cyborg Fox made back in 2020, and he recently did a sequel that I reviewed here called, here in 2024. And the one he made in 2020 was called Southern Fox 11, and the sequel he made recently, as of a week ago, so less than a week ago, was called Southern Foxy Consequences. And they both dealt with Tails and Bunnie basically, of course, getting it on. In Southern Fox 11, as I've talked about before, Bunnie, basically she's married to Antoine, and just like she was in the Archie Sonic comics. And, the difference here in this story is Antoine is, basically portrayed as being very uppity and very highfalutin, if you will, to the point that he doesn't want to degrade himself to have to, give in to Bunnie's urges that she needs to be taken care of. So what does Bunnie do? She decides to go to Tails, who's aged up in the story, and after kind of coaxing him and flirting with him and all that, gets him to give in and help her out, in that department, not knowing, as we find out in the sequel, that, like I said, Cyborg Fox put out, less than a week ago, not knowing that the little romp, to help her out would result in her basically expecting, if you will. But what's interesting about the sequel is it also falls back on something else. Because as I mentioned in the review, the way, certain scenes in the original were described, it's like all Cyborg Fox had to do was add in parentheses that, that Bunnie and Tails were falling in love. But they just didn't know it. I mean, the fact that he would describe them gazing longingly into each other's eyes, staring lustfully into each other's eyes, and all that. Again, all these have to do is put in parentheses, as they were starting to fall in love, unbeknownst to them. That's all he had to do. But he didn't do that, but we can kind of see that. We can kind of see that was occurring. And the person that requested the sequel, obviously saw it too, and thus we ended up getting what we did, to where at the end of the story, the sequel, Bunnie is now with Tails and Antoine is left alone. And even though some people are a little like, some of the characters, initially are not happy, once they find out the reason, they're like, oh, well, that makes sense. Good for you, Bunnie. Leave that guy if he doesn't want to help you. And the same goes for Sally, who tries to, act like she's disappointed, but Bunnie, being her BFF, could see right through that disappointment and be like, hey, you want a piece of him? Just let me know. I'm cool with that. And that obviously cliffhangs for another sequel to be made down the line. But the reason I bring this up, and I think I've talked about it before, I'm not really sure, but there are other artists and fanfic writers out there, that, and I'll add myself to that equation, or add myself to that group as well, that kind of, upload fan art and fan stories where Tails and Bunnie are paired up. One person in particular over at inkbunny.net, and I think he's on DeviantArt as well, and for Infinite, he has a couple of pictures to where Bunnie and Tails are together. There's one image that takes place obviously in Knothole, and it kind of follows, the trend, or follows the little subplot or character subplot that, Bunnie wants to be a hairdresser, have her own hairstyling business and all that. Well, basically, long story short, the story that accompanies the picture, and here's the thing, I cannot post that picture here, because if I do, I'm a dead man. But anyway, the story that accompanies the picture is that Bunnie and Tails went on a recon to Robotropolis to see what was going on with Eggman, and as soon as they got back, it seemed that Bunnie got a little bit more, I guess you could say, affectionate with Tails than he could expect. And there were various times where she would tease him. She would put her, I guess you could say, upper region on his head, rest her upper region, her rack, as it's described, on his head, rested there. She would tap him a little bit, on the back, or the buttocks, if you will. And so on. She would basically tease the heck out of him to the point that he's like, I can't focus on my work here. I can't focus on my inventing, so I got to go talk to her. And it's like she knew he was going to do this, because she compliments, about time you showed up. And Tails basically obviously knows what's about to happen, because she tells him take a seat. And what she does then, according to the description of the story that accompanies the picture, is she, basically turns the open sign to close. It's like one of those hanging open signs that you turn over to close. She does that, shuts the door, shuts the curtains, and basically, let's just say, Tails explains to her what's going on, and it's kind of described as, them getting getting more attracted to each other, and let's just say the picture, which I cannot link or show here, pretty much indicates that, that Bunnie's flirtatious teasing has paid off, and she now has pretty much a boyfriend in Tails. And that's not the only one. There's another picture as well that has them, getting, busy, if you will, in the hay, which is, I guess, one of the hay piles, next to the sliding tree, which is the entrance into Knothole. And the little subtitle to it is "Rolling the Hay, Stork on the Way." And then there's another one where he's kind of helping her out, with urge, if you will, that she needs to be taken care of. And she compliments that, hey, whenever you want to clean out, whenever you want to help me with my robotic parts and all that, come by anytime. You can come find me anytime, or I'll come to you at any time, or whatever it was. And I bring this all up because apparently this fan and others out there like to pair Bunnie and Tails together. Now, I know people might say that can't be, because, in several chronological canons and continuities, Tails is 8 to 10 or 12 to 14. And that is indeed fact. That is indeed fact, in some cases. However, here's the issue. They're basing this shipping, if you will, off what they see in real life. Because you see, what they see in real life, and I'm someone, and I've mentioned this before, who went to high school when this happened. Basically, they're basing this kind of relationship on the fact that, yeah, she might be a few years older than him, but that doesn't mean she can't be with him. I was in Oskaloosa High School, and I was in a freshman class with a couple of girls and everything, and some of these girls ended up dating guys that were 4 years older than them. In fact, one of them married this guy as well and is with him to this day. And she was 4 years younger, 3.5 to 4 years younger. And I think that's why people are basing a ship like this. I think that's why people are basing a ship like this, of Bunnie and Tails. I think that's what they're basing it off of. That's what I was trying to say. I think that's what they're basing it off of. They're basing, a romance like this, off the fact that, she might be 3 years, 4 years older than him, but that doesn't mean she can't be with him, And again, I know people might argue that, but to me, that's why some people ship Tails with certain characters that might be older, chronologically older, like Bunnie, like Sally. Yes, they do ship Tails and Sally. Like Rouge, if you will. Or like Blaze. Yeah, they do ship Tails and Blaze. They do that because it's not just due to the fact that, it's fantasy, and if we want to in our fan arts and fanfics, we can age them up and everything. It's not just that. It's the fact that they look at it from a real life point of view. And that real life point of view is that there are, young people that may be years, apart, in age that date each other. There is. I mean, heck, you look at, what goes on in the world of, in the world of Hollywood with celebrities and all that, and you wonder to yourself, why is an older guy or older girl like this dating a younger guy or younger girl like that? It just doesn't compute. It doesn't make sense, but yet there it is. So I think that's what they're doing. But the way they're doing it is they're basing it off more of what they've seen growing up. Like, they've seen, like me, potentially some friends that might be years apart, getting together. And I think that's why you see this, the Bunnie and Tails pairing happening a lot. Probably more so than anything. I mean, not as much as Tails and Nicole, because Tails and Nicole, as I've talked about before, that's a ship that can be done at any time, because Nicole, being an AI, can shape herself to any age she wants to basically match up with, with Tails. Match up with Tails and all that, and go from there. And go from there. But again, outside of, the Tails and Nicole deal, and everything, you have Tails and Bunnie. And the other reason I think as well is there's, and I went back and talked about this, I think, in my review, of Southern Foxy Consequences. I said that there was a backup story in one of the earlier issues where the comic was slowly transitioning, the Archie Sonic comic was slowly transitioning from a very humorous comic to a more serious comic, more of a Satam-inspired comic. And one of the backup issues had Bunnie basically collecting all these emeralds, all these little green chaos emeralds, before they decided to go the 7 emerald route. She's collecting all these different emeralds for her outfit, for her dress, that she's going to wear to a charity dance or to a charity ball. And to me, what really, kind of set off people in thinking, are they teasing a Bunnie Tails ship? Is you have Sally and Bunnie all dressed up and ready, and here you have Sonic and Tails, finishing up getting themselves ready in their, in their tuxedos or their suits. And the first impression that goes through your mind is, wait a minute, is Tails taking Bunnie and Sonic's taking Sally? Or the other way around? The first thing that goes through your mind is like, wait a minute, we know Sonic's taking Sally. Does that mean Tails is taking Bunnie? It's like, what? And again, I think it goes back to what I said about the Tails Nicole deal. People see, Nicole as one of Sally's best friends, like a sister, little sister. So it only makes sense to them that, Sally's little sister would end up with Sonic's little bro, that being Tails. To kind of make it even Steven. But this was before all of that happened, and I think they looked at it, and still some look at it this way, like, well, BFFs and Sally and Bunnie, BFFs and Sonic and Tails, it only makes sense. Despite the fact that there is an age difference by a few years, people will look beyond that because they base, the shipping and all that on real life. That's what they're doing. That's what they're doing. I mean, true, not everybody's going to agree with that. I mean, heck, I had people and still have people commenting on what I, wrote up or typed up on, WordPad and everything, and what you saw here on YouTube, in a short minute and 15-second video. I had people commenting on there that, it's, some didn't like it. Some were okay with it, some didn't, or some weren't, I should say. And that's understandable, but I think what they fail to understand is, yeah, you could disagree with it, but maybe you need to look at it from a real life perspective of, oh, that's why they're doing it. That's why they're doing it. Because again, as some people pointed out, canon-wise, in certain aspects of Sonic, Tails is viewed as 8, and that could be like the classic Sonic era. But when we view him now in like the Sonic Frontiers, Sonic Prime era, you're looking at someone that might be about the age of 13, 14, and when you compare him to Bunnie, who's like 17, 18, to them, that's like, well, she might be 4 years older than him, but heck, we've seen people in real life, some close friends end up together, and they're like 4 or 3 years apart. So there shouldn't be any issue. And I think that's why they go this route. I think they do. Whether we like to admit that or not, I think that's why they go this route. So yeah, that's why I think we see a lot of Tails and Bunnie stories, and sometimes even, Tails and Sally, because they're basing it off real life situations, age-wise, that is seen in, seen out there in the world, or they've seen, personally themselves. But let me know what your thoughts are. What do you think of it? I mean, I know some of you might not agree with it, and that's fine. Some of you might feel it's not right and everything, that's fine. But what do you think of it overall of, people going this route of a Tails-Bunnie relationship or whatever in their own continuities and fan-ins and whatever, because they base it off, just an age difference of 3 to 4 years. Let me know down below in the comments as well in the live chat during the premiere. Like the video. And until next time, guys, I am out.